Afreximbank sets up $1 billion AFCFTA facility. The Nigerian Senate is to investigate 9 billion mining fraud. Cost of data in Nigeria reduced by more than half, plus oil prices rise on Thursday lifted by a COVID-19 vaccine rollout. These and more on Business Express reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital with me, Leah Katun Babatunde. The federal government is to inject over 60 billion naira in the construction, rehabilitation and expansion of roads and other critical infrastructure across the country for enhanced socio-economic development. The Federal Executive Council gave the approval at its weekly meeting held virtually for the 27th time in the new normal. Now, meanwhile, the Nigerian Minerals and Mining Law provides that ownership and control of all minerals in Nigeria is vested in the federal government. Ironically, this exclusive right has suffered years of abuse. Mining of solid minerals has been a scramble of a sort, with illegal miners smiling to the bank at the detriment of the Commonwealth. Now the Senate is saying enough is enough as it resolved to investigate alleged loss of $9 billion to illegal mining of gold.
We must intensify further efforts to combat illegal mining and set up all revenue leakages from such clandestine activities and raise to the occasion of this one. I ask Mr. President to direct the federal government to close the leakages.
In Gashaka local government of Taraba State, we have instances where by aircrafts, come during the night. We don't know what they pick. So I think, this is also, a security issue.
If you travel from Kogi to Abuja late night, you will see trailers. The people you see inside these trailers are foreigners. These are people who are engaged in illegal mining.
Urge the Senate Committee on Solid Minerals, Mines and Steel Development and Metallurgy to investigate this matter and report back to the Senate in 6 weeks.
The current cost of data in Nigeria has reduced to less than 50% of January 2020 cost. As Minister of the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, Isa Ali Pantami, has put measures in place to significantly reduce the average cost of data. A statement by Femi Adelui, Technical Assistant Information Technology to the Minister on Digital Economy, it says the average cost of 1 gigabyte of data has reduced from the January 2020 cost of 1,000 naira to 487 naira 18 kobo in November 2020, which amounts to 47.33% lower than the projected value. The report also indicates that the cost of data in November 2020 was less than 50% of the cost of data in January 2020. The statement said the price template is based on a report by the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC) submitted to the minister following the implementation of the directives. In a related development, Minister of Communications and Digital Economy Isa Ibrahim Pantami has directed the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC) to embark on another audit of the subscriber registration database again. The objective of the audit exercise is to verify and ensure compliance by mobile network operators with the set quality standard and requirements of SIM card registration. The minister said mobile network operators are therefore directed to immediately suspend the sale, registration and activation of new SIM cards until the audit exercise is concluded and government has conveyed the new direction where it is absolutely necessary. He said exemption may be granted in writing by the Commission following approval from the federal government. In oil prices rose on Thursday, buoyed by a COVID-19 vaccine rollout in Britain and the imminent approval of a vaccine in the United States that could spur a rebound in fuel demand, despite a large build in U.S. crude stocks last week. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 25 cents or 0.6% to $45.77 this morning, while the Brent crude futures climbed 22 cents or 0.5% to $49.08 a barrel. Prices were little changed overnight. Market watchers say the market is looking past what looks like a difficult winter and peering into the optimistic lens of 2021 as vaccinations could start as soon as this weekend in the United States. Now time to see prices of other commodities in the global market. Now, why is Nigeria depending on other countries to meet her fish needs, or is there anything fishy in the country's fish industry? Correspondent Musa Baba Aliyu, while seeking answers to these questions, also investigates why Nigerians are among the world's lowest consumers of fish and its byproducts.
Estimated that an average Nigerian consumes at least 14 kilograms of fish and its byproducts annually. This means that Nigerians consume an estimated 3.32 million metric tons of fish in a year. This is according to statistics released by Federal Ministry of Agriculture. Kado Fish Market, located in Abuja, is one of the places where varieties of fish can be purchased by residents of FCT and other neighboring states to the Federal Capital Territory. The market opens as early as 5 a.m. daily for business.
Offload, each motor contains 50 bags and each bag contains 25 kg. And we offload in the whole of this market not less than 30 motor in a day, every day, and they are buy and they are consuming.
Two varieties of fish are commonly in demand by Nigerians, and the most sought after are the varieties from saltwater, popularly known as ice fish.
Most of these fish, we don't have them in Nigeria. We don't have Titus in Nigeria. We don't have croaker in Nigeria. We don't have kote, that is horse mackerel in Nigeria. The only fish we can produce in Nigeria is catfish.
So if you now say you want to ban fish, then we will ask the federal government, which type of fish do you want to ban? Because to us, we traders, and those of us who are in the fish industry, we know that a lot of fish has already been banned. Catfish, we don't import catfish for a very long time. Fish like tilapia has not been imported for a very long time. Fish like hake has not been imported for a very long time. If they do come into Nigeria, it means they come through the other various means.
What is fishy in the fish business and the great concern to government and fishermen is the smuggling and influx of foreign dry fish into Nigerian markets. Dry fish producers describe this as economic sabotage. In Abuja, Musa Baba Aliyu.
Now, moving to the equities markets, where reports show that sell pressure persists as investors lost 6.52 billion naira on the Nigerian stock market at the close of trade on Wednesday. The NSE All-Share Index dropped further by 0.04% to close at 35,021.26 basis points, with market capitalization closing at 18.3 trillion naira. Investors exchanged 283 million shares valued at 3.4 billion naira in 3,855 deals. Market turnover closed negative as volume moved down by 7.76% as against 5.36% down take recorded in the previous session. FBN Holdings Guarantee Trust Bank and ICO Insurance were the most active to boost market turnover. Guarantee and Zenith Bank topped market value list. And on the global scene, stocks begin to take a breather this Thursday as Brexit and U.S. stimulus talks slow. Here's Boss Day Abel's report on how trade kicked off.
European stocks are expected to open lower on Thursday as markets track the parallel state of Brexit trade deal talks between the UK and EU this week. London's FTSE is seen opening 10-point lower at 6,563. Germany's DAX 30-point lower at 13,326, and France's CAC 40 6-point lower at 5,547. Asia Pacific market mostly declined Thursday as investors kept an eye on Brexit trade talk as well as ongoing negotiations in the US for a coronavirus relief package. The Nikkei in Japan fell 0.23%, Hang Seng Index declined 0.48%, and Shanghai Composite was near flatline. US stock index futures were slightly higher in overnight trading on Wednesday as investors continue to assess progress on additional stimulus measures as well as developments on COVID-19 vaccine fronts. And at the time of this report, stocks are yet to open for the day's trade. For Africa's stocks, Tunisia's Tunidex and Nairobi's All Share began early trade bullish. Ghana's GSE Composite marginal, while South Africa's GSE Africa Top 40 and Namibia's overall index were low. Boss Day Able, Business Express.
Africa Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, has set up a $1 billion African Continental Free Trade Area AfCFTA adjustment facility to help member states adjust to the new trade regime and sudden losses in tariff revenue as a result of its implementation. Afreximbank said the export potentials of intra-African trade is more than $84 billion, which if tapped would take a total intra-African trade to $231 billion. The bank said the removal of tariffs and non-tariff barriers through the implementation of the AfCFTA should see greater official trade between surplus and deficit countries and reduced levels of smuggling. Stakeholders and experts in the pension industry have kicked against the fresh move by state governors to borrow from Nigeria's pension funds and urged the necessary authorities not to approve the request. As of September 2020, total value of the pension funds under management stood at 11.56 trillion naira. Stephen Bathner, former general manager, Aiko Pensions Managers Limited, and former general manager, Investment and Treasury Management, Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund, is in a previous conversation with my colleague Moplang Dakok, spoke about borrowing and investing Nigeria's pension funds. Let's bring you that discussion.
Market and what is happening in Nigerian fund management cycle is the fact that there's a move by the state governors to borrow 17 trillion from various sources, not just pension fund, to invest in infrastructural development.
Okay.
My take on that is that if state government wants to borrow, it's not a new thing. Government have always been borrowing funds from the pension industry, because when pension fund administrators invest in bonds or treasury bills or any other instrument issued by federal government or state, it simply means that yes, they are lending to government. So it's not a new thing if actually state government can key into borrowing from that fund. But the key thing is that going by the investment objective as provided for in section 85 and section 86 of Pension Reform Act 2014, that gives a guide as to which areas pension fund administrators could actually invest these funds that are under their management. For that reason, what I believe is going to happen, as you just said, the total assets cumulative in terms of pension fund in Nigeria as of today is just 11.56 trillion. So we cannot be talking of them borrowing 17 trillion when actually the pension asset that is available globally in Nigeria today is only 11.56 trillion as at September this year. That's to say, it's just a discussion that is going on.
Okay.
And for that discussion to be concluded, there is need for a lot of things to be put in place. One, there must be a legal and as well as a commercial structure in place for that fund that the states that want to invest in. Unless that is in place, nobody can talk of pension PFAs investing in their pension fund into that particular structure now. It is assumed that as we go along, when the legal framework is out and the commercial framework is also out, that will be exposed to the PFAs. The PFAs will now look at their risk appetite individually and determine whether or not they can invest in that particular instrument. And it is going to be under the guidance of National Pension Commission, PENCOM, because no PFA invests any fund in any instrument without clearance from National Pension Commission.
Okay.
That's the way I see it.
Okay, so you've said that there's nothing wrong in borrowing from these funds. However, there's been a lot of outcry thinking that investing these funds will be wiser. But why do you think we've had this outcry about these pension funds?
I think basically there's misconception and lack of understanding of how pension fund is administered in Nigeria. 11.56 trillion that is available in the market today, the cumulative pension fund. If you look at it, it's classified into different sectors. About 8 trillion is actually meant for the active RSA fund. That means for workers that are still in service, they have about 8.8 trillion. And then there's about 1 trillion for retirees, those that have retired and are supposed to take their pension. About 1 trillion is there, it's our 9.54. Then about 1.4 trillion for closed pension fund administrators, and then about 1.1 trillion for funds that have been in management before, approved schemes. So you can see that already these funds have invested in various classes of assets.
Okay, can you take us through, just very quickly, through the regulations, since you said many Nigerians are not aware of the regulations?
Now, many Section 55, Section 85, clearly of PRA, Pension Reform Act 2014, clearly defines the objective of investing this fund. What should be the objective of PFAs investing in a scheme? In any scheme, it means that they are looking at 1, safety of the fund, and 2, fair return on investment. Then Section 86A to I now classify the assets that PFAs can invest in. 86A talks about the fact that PFAs can invest in and bills, as well as other instruments guaranteed by the federal government, which has always been the case as of now. 86B talks of the fact that PFAs can invest in bonds and bills that are floated or guaranteed by state and local governments. You can see that it's going down up to local government. They can borrow from this scheme.
So but what's the place for checks and balances in accessing these funds?
Now, the checks and balances are actually under the regulation that PENCOM normally gives out, issue to various PFAs as to what they can invest and each asset class. So if it happens that PFA has exceeded its limit in investing in bonds, it means that that PFA cannot invest in bonds, has to go for either treasury bills. And if treasury bills is maybe exhausted, you go for equities and other classes of assets. So clearly, there's a regulation, there's a guideline that PFAs have to go through. And we should also understand that these monies, these funds are actually not with the PFAs. The PFAs are just managers. And whatever they try to do when they are managing, they have to consult a lot of authorities. One is the PENCOM, and then the pension fund custodians. Who are the custodians of the funds? The funds are with them. The assets, generally, the assets are with them. While the pension fund administrators, theirs is just to manage. They are bookkeepers, basically.
All right, so we know that transparency is key, talking about these funds and of course any other type of fund. But do you see the Freedom of Information Act helping out in this transparency?
Sure. Freedom of Information Act is very key in all transactions in Nigeria, not only in pension, but in all aspects of government activities. It's very easy for anybody that wants to get information on his account or on how investments are done in the PFAs to get in touch with either his PFA or contact National Pension Commission directly. That information can be provided. If you go to the website of National Pension Commission, for those that want to know, they can actually access all the regulations, how these assets are supposed to be actually invested, how the custodians are liable to whatever happens, to the extent that at any time anybody can get in touch with the PFA of his choice to determine whether or not such his investment is doing well. And of recent, we could understand that the transfer window has been opened. It means that if an RSA holder is not comfortable with what the PFA is doing, he or she has the right to change his PFA. I want to understand that if you are going to a market, you must go with equity, you go with clean hands. As of today, in the pension industry, the contribution pension scheme, we have only 25 states that have actually enacted law to say they want to key into the contributory pension scheme.
Yes.
Out of that 25, only 15 have either set up a bureau of pension bureau, or pension board. Only 10 are contributing into the scheme. Now, if only 10 states out of 36, 37 with the FCT are actually active in that particular sector, why do they want to borrow from that sector? So they should comply.
Okay.
That will make it easy for everybody to understand that, yes, since they are also in the scheme,
Yes,
they can borrow
from it. All right. Thank you so very much for your time with us today on Business Express. We've been speaking with Mr. Stephen Batma, who is the former General Manager, ICO Pension Managers Limited. Thank you so much for your time with us today on the program.
Thank you for.
Okay. The emergence of COVID-19 pandemic brought a whole standstill to the global market and businesses. It also brought new strategies and approaches in how to stay afloat in the business world. Here's the story of a young entrepreneur who fought doggedly to keep his business alive as the world battles COVID-19.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
My name is Henry Tehembator. I'm a fashion designer. I've been doing it for a while now.
Just like every other person, Henry Tehembator is a fashion designer who had his own fair share of the pandemic that affected his business.
I was actually motivated by passion. I had passion for creativity.
To keep his business alive, Henry started thinking out of the box to meet the demands of his clients through the wave of change brought by coronavirus pandemic.
My business was able to survive in that the coronavirus also brought the idea of face masks. So I quickly incorporated that into my business, started making face masks for schools, for churches, for business places that needed it at the time. So I was able to scale through from there. And then still had some persons that were making clothes in preparation to after the coronavirus. So I still had some jobs to do at the time. The coronavirus came in with its good and its bad, like every other thing. Yeah, it had the advantage of making people, it brought job opportunities, sorry to say. It made people see possible ways to do things apart from the norm. As much as it brought the disaster that it came with. But it impacted the business world both positively and negatively.
For Henry, COVID-19 rather expanded his thinking faculty in business as he continues to strive to make ends meet. Bosside Abel, Business Express.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
And it is on that inspiring note we end this edition of Business Express. Remember to keep in touch by sending your comments, observations, and suggestions. Also be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on the NTS channel. You can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is NTA News Now. Don't forget to use the hashtag Business Express returns Friday at 3 p.m. I am Leah Katun. Babatunde.